All right, guys, we have a special episode for you guys today. It is Saturday, and we're going live from Fight Island. Well, we're not live from Fight Island. The fight's be live from Fight Island. UFC 257. So we have a special guest, Brandon Ferris, former host of the Cabin podcast. And as guys like us know, he is a legend in downtown London.
Oh, don't do that, man. Don't.
Yeah. We will only say the good things. That's why I'm just going to say you're a legend there. So welcome to the show, man.
I am very grateful to be on here, and I'm going to try not to swear, but it's not going to go very fucking long.
Yeah, perfect. There you go. Yeah, I'm impressed that Chad got everything out without burping this time.
Yeah.
Take two.
Yeah.
And like
I like this stuff, so we're good.
I'm excited to have you on the show here too, Brandon. I don't know very much about fighting in general, and I know you're a wealth of knowledge when it comes to it, so I'm excited for it.
Well, you know what? You know a lot about computers because you used to be my tech guy back in the day when I needed to what was it? Jailbreak iPhones and all this audio.
Yeah, that's right. I was doing some things on the side, no doubt.
All right, man. So we have a big card this week. Obviously, you got McGregor and Poirier, main event.
Yeah.
I got the orange and the green up. Wrapping up.
Yeah, you ginger fuck. So, who do you think is going to come out on top of that main event? Obviously, they have a heated past. Looks like they've gotten past it. But are we expecting the same thing that we saw the first time?
Who's fighting?
Poirier and McGregor.
There's a lot of. Okay, I'm just going to keep it very simple because I can just go off and talk about every little thing. And you guys explicitly told me not to go off. I made that up, but like it depends. I've never seen Conor this calm and dedicated and focused like this. It's interesting, and there's no bad blood between him and Poirier. And they fought 6 years ago, and if you aren't aware, Conor knocked him out in the first round, which he actually called he was going to do. So
called that? Yeah, I didn't even know that.
That was the beginning of Mystic Mac. He says, I predict these things. he knocked him out, and I don't care what you say. If a grown man knocks you out in your profession, he will have some real estate in your head, and that will come into play. Now, do I think that Poirier is a much better fighter and evolved? Absolutely. Footwork, his angles are different. He has a different mindset to the game. But if it came to it, I think I'd put my money on Conor if I had to. If I had to pick the winner and I get $1 million, I would go with Conor just because of the way he's focused.
So if you were playing on cool bet, you would definitely be picking Conor McGregor.
I think it's a cool bet to. You see that segue to there? To pick Conor. I think he's going to KO Poirier. But again, I wouldn't be surprised. You could put $100 down on Poirier, and you would not be a fool. Let's just say that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'll write that down.
Mm-hmm.
So, co-main event, though, we have something really cool happening. One of the biggest non-UFC fighters, probably in the last 5-6 years, Michael Chandler was finally a free agent, and Dana White scooped him up finally.
Yes, he did.
He's getting his shot now at the UFC, and he's not getting a slouch. Like, there's no tune-up fight here. He is getting a top prospect in Dan Hooker, who was climbing the ranks until he met Poirier in his last fight.
And they almost died.
Yeah. So where do you think Chandler stands in this? Like, how do you think he goes, or do you think Hooker just cleans him?
Chandler's an animal. He trains with the best in the world. He's a wrestler. He trains with Gilbert Burns. He trains with the 170 champ from the UFC as well. So he's no slouch, but he's unknown to the UFC fans, not to the MMA world. Now, keep in mind, he's a wrestler. He's got good stand-up. His conditioning's there. But he's kind of a late starter sometimes. Like, he gets hit. And if you get hit with Hooker, especially with his knees, you might not be around for very long. Hooker comes from New Zealand. He's a very, very good kickboxer. Great takedown defense. But he's one of his special weapons is he has a stand-up. He'll throw a knee randomly. So a wrestler that comes in could catch a knee and go out.
So what you're saying is don't let Hooker knee you in the face.
Absolutely.
I got to write that down. It seems important.
Don't let a hooker, and hooker, not a hooker. Yeah, but here's the thing: Hooker took a very big risk because like you just said, Chandler's an animal, but doesn't have a big name. So Hooker has more to lose here because he's not going to gain a lot from the win, but he has a lot to lose. That's a dangerous game.
He's fighting an unranked fighter in the UFC. What it comes down to.
Absolutely.
So
and
Chandler wins, he's automatically in the top 10.
oh yeah,
Hooker loses, he is automatically out of the top 10.
No. I wouldn't say that. I'd say so. Hooker's. I think he's top 5. I can't remember his ranking right now because they're always changing, and the UFC rankings are kind of stupid. But I do believe that Hooker is top 5. Chandler is not ranked, but he could become a top 5 if he takes a good win over Hooker.
Top 5, eh? Oof.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
Like that's immediate title contention then with this win.
Hey, meteoric rise to fame there pretty quickly. If they're going not known in the UFC to fans, he's going to be pretty well known right after that, wouldn't he?
Yeah, well, yeah. The landscape looks like this. Khabib is unsure if he's going to come back, so he may relinquish the belt. That leaves it for Poirier or Conor to have the shot at the belt, or the winner gets the relinquished belt. The winner of Hooker and Chandler could be in the title contention, but there's Charles Oliveira waiting in the wings for a shot, who's been impressive as of late.
Mm-hmm.
So this landscape is going to be very interesting based off your performance this weekend. And who knows, man? Like it could be. This could be a very, very, very interesting card, especially because there's no sound, there's no crowd, so you're going to hear a lot of things that we've never heard a Conor fight silent. Who's the biggest crowds in MMA? Is Conor. They're the loudest fans besides GSP Canada. Thank you, but there is no louder crowd than Conor. So you're going to hear the quietest crowd with Conor you've ever heard, which could come into play.
Right. Well, and that's I was actually going to ask you. There's no belt.
No.
Conor doesn't need the money. You just said there's no crowd. So what is Conor's real? Yeah. What is Conor's real motivation in this fight?
Legacy. Leaving. He just recently said an interesting quote, and I thought it was cool. He says, I got all the money in the world, but you know what? People lose their belts, lose all their money back and get it back, but what sticks around are highlights. And he wants to show his son his highlights because he's got 2 kids now. He's the daddest man on the planet right now. And he's very focused on legacy, which is very interesting. That you never heard that out of his mouth before. In a sense, where it comes to not talking about like decimating his opponent, but they're motivated in a sense where they want their name to be above the others. Essentially, Conor's had a run in the 145 division. Went up, fought Nate Diaz in the 170, fought Mayweather, but he never really had a run in the 155 division. I think this is him making a statement that I can run whatever I want. You drop me in a division, it's my division, and that's his motivation.
So I heard something today, and it could be 1,000% wrong, but I was watching the Pat McAfee show, and they were talking about this fight, and Conor has 4 fights left on his contract with the UFC.
Possible. Very possible.
He said that he wants those 4 fights done as fast as possible.
I believe that. Yeah.
For the simple fact, like for me, he is a businessman at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Fighter
he will be the highest profile free agent ever in MMA.
He'll never be a free agent.
You don't think so? You think
never?
Because
he'll be done.
The other organizations, some of those organizations throw cash around.
He'll never. The only thing
he can promote himself, go back to sponsors. Is that a thing?
Conor doesn't need a sponsor. He's his own sponsor. He has his own whiskey company. He
Proper 12.
Yeah, Proper 12. So, which we should talk to them for you guys. But what Conor will be, and now this is a different podcast we can get into, but if I'm invited back on, have you? Is that there's a very interesting legal case going on right now in the MMA world that could happen down the road where the UFC may not be able to harness fighters because it's called the Ali Act, and they may have a lawsuit in their hands, but that's another. But anyway, so by the time that happens, Conor will long be crushing people and be out of the sport possibly. But Conor will just go to boxing. He's probably fight Manny Pacquiao after his contract and then come back to the UFC. Like that's in the realm of possibilities.
Where were you thinking, or where was Pat thinking he could end up there, Chad?
Well, they didn't say where. They were just talking about like it's a thing, right? Like he has 4 fights left on his contract. Like there's never been a free agent in MMA like Conor McGregor.
They'll sign him before his contract ends again. He'll be part ownership of WME.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Now, somebody
like
doesn't know.
I have no idea. Like I learned this
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, it's funny you brought that up. Is because one thing cool about the fight is that so how Poirier and the Conor fight came about initially is because Conor wants to have these fights happen often, but they weren't giving him fights. So he and Poirier agreed to have a fight outside of the UFC, which is a charity boxing match. And what that was about was obviously they just built some charity, but the UFC was like, no, we're not having this. We're not having this. So they made this fight happen. So Poirier and Conor are actually on good terms right now to help charities out. And Conor's company, the McGregor Foundation, has reached out to Poirier and helped the Good Fight, which is Poirier's charity. But this fight actually happened, trying to start charity ultimately. Interesting. You never think that what the hell's going on.
Yeah, I never heard that at all. That's amazing. And so I do have a question as somebody that doesn't know the sport very well. Okay, and I know there's different associations and leagues or whatever you want to call. So besides UFC, you've got Bellator and what was the other? I think there was a P. What's the PMA? PFL. So what should I know about these other organizations? Like again, I only watch the top cards of UFC. What can I find in Bellator? What can I find in PFL?
Well, Bellator. Okay. Was a great organization. They originally were known as the kind of the graveyard of fighters having their careers end there, older fighters. But that's not the case anymore because with Bellator and other places, they allow you to bring your own sponsorships, which the UFC typically doesn't. Also, they're not stringent to USADA regulations, meaning USADA is a drug testing organization that the UFC hired that works for the UFC. Now, what that means is you have to adhere to USADA's rules, which is very stringent. They just recently removed marijuana in 2021. They just recently, that's how long it took. But you have to allow the USADA where you're going to be at all times. So they could drop in at your house at any time of every day and test you to make sure that you're strict with your drug testing. Now, Bellator does testing as well, but it's not as strict. So a lot of guys end up going there sometimes because A, you can bring your sponsorships, make your own money. B, they say you're a little more respected. And C, you're not having the lifestyle effect outside of your training in an octagon. There's another organization in Asia called ONE FC, and it's massive. But it's not big here because of just North America. But it's millions of viewers, and it's insane. The winner of the tournament gets $1 million.
Jesus. Is it comparable to like pride fighting, like the craziness, that like the intensity of it?
So yes, so there are soccer kicks.
Wow.
And it's cage. But case in point, actually recently, which never happens in MMA, but there was a trade from Ben Askren was traded from the UFC champion, flyweight champion, Demetrius Johnson, and they actually swapped fighters. So Demetrius is over in Europe, just crushing people at 125, and then Ben Askren got crushed over here. So it's unknown, but if you want to watch some really good fights, you're not wrong for checking out Bellator or ONE FC. There's combat. If you like combat, and it's something you're interested in, then definitely check them all out because it's high level.
All right,
definitely.
Well, I have an interesting because we're talking about combat. We're talking about different styles, like different ways to watch the fight. Now, in my mind, like I'm a visual person, so I'm wondering how I would get knocked out in the UFC, and I'm going to tell you how it's going to happen. So, I'm not.
Too long.
Let's keep in mind. I'm not saying that I can roll around with professional athletes. I wrestled in high school. I'm not saying that makes me able to roll around with these guys. I also feel like I can take a punch because I've taken a lot of punches in the face before.
That's probably why you think you're big one.
Now, I can also tell you, like, one thing that would drive me nuts from watching these fights is all these kicks to the leg. Now, if somebody was kicking me in the leg repeatedly, I would go nuts. I would lose my composure. And I would drop my hands. I would get knocked the fuck out. That's exactly what would happen to me.
If you have a amateur, if you have one,
that's me. I'm an amateur.
What do you weigh? What do you weigh?
Like 215.
If you had a 135 MMA UFC fighter leg kick you one time. One time. I'm not lying to you. I'm not even exaggerating. One time, you wouldn't have time to go nuts because you'd be like, "What the fuck just happened?"
I have never felt something like that.
Landmine. To be able to have the ability to opportunity to get knocked out with is impressive. Body shot will take you down and you'll want to die. You'll want to die. Like just don't get knocked out. Let's just leave it at
that. That's fair. But I'm a visual guy, so I need to know how I'm getting knocked out. So I appreciate you sharing that.
And you get jabbed in the nose, you won't see, and then in the right hand, and you'll
yeah.
Take your driver's license away for a couple years. Don't do it. That's my best advice.
Right, so after Shane's really deep question, I have one more question for you. We talked about the two main. It's a really deep question that he asked you. We talked about the two main fights. For me, the other fight I'm looking forward to is the Calderwood and I fight.
Yeah,
the women always bring it, and those are two girls coming off a loss, two phenomenal strikers, and in the women's division, like the movement so much because it's still so new. If you had out of those two girls, like someone's getting knocked out. It's that simple.
Calderwood's
it's not that it's going the distance.
Calderwood's
and it puts one of those girls right back into title contention. They've both fought bullet. They both lost a bullet. Everybody's lost.
Everyone loses the bullet. That's how it works.
Yeah, it's that simple.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, that's the fight that excites me outside of the main two. Like, what's the one fight on this card that you're looking forward to outside of the main ones?
You know what? I was literally just looking at the fight card because I was like, there's so many fights. There's a bunch of fights. The main events, the whole main card is going to be good. We're looking at the prelims. Brad Tavares is always a good fight. He's fighting Antonio Jr. That's going to be a sleeper. I think someone's getting slept in that fight. Those guys throw it out the limb. There's no backstab. Someone's getting KO'd for sure.
Yeah.
But like the women bring it, man.
Yeah.
About those women. It scares me. They're insane. They always bring it.
It scares you, but it kind of turns you on at the same time, right?
A little bit.
I think that those women fights might be the most entertaining sports to watch at some points. Like honestly, you never are ever going to have a down fight every single time.
Did you just say those women? Did you say those women? I'm showing this to your wife.
Those women fights, yeah, they're good.
Girls.
Yeah, what do you mean those women? Them women.
They're
women's.
They're all athletes.
Kid. They are athletes.
No, the ladies back there, they're punching. No,
yeah.
The women bring it, man. They bring it every time.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't imagine what it's like being a woman in today's world, let alone being a professional women's fighter. So scares me a little bit.
They have to bring it. Like they're still fighting. Like it sounds like they should not be fighting for their acceptance, which is a joke because they bring heat every time. But I feel like that's what's in the back of their mind every single time they close that door.
Yeah.
Here's your platform.
They put on a show every time.
Yeah. And like you guys said, the movement is so up and down in that division, right? So it's crazy. You really got to make
every fight matters so much.
That's right.
It's weird because you have a champion that the gap is so big from 1 to 2 that what do you do? What do you do? She just crushes everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let them go 2-on-1.
Now we're talking about something.
You know me, man. I'm an idea guy. Visual learner.
Vision 2-on-1.
Yeah. I'm getting in my ear that we're going over our time from Liam. But you know what? We appreciate you coming on.
I had a blast. For the second time.
It was a great time. Yeah. You know, second time around it was great. First time around, Chad burped into the mic. Everyone missed it. But we'll definitely have you on again.
I appreciate it.
Definitely have you on again. Maybe Khabib and GSP will fight, and that'll end up being an entire show for us.
I look forward to being invited back on. I'm happy to come and help, and I'm panicking as I speak right now.
All right, man. Well, cheers. Enjoy the fights. Appreciate the pick.
Cheers.
Enjoy the fight.